You know what we're excited about though, gang? Who's excited? Who's excited? Who's excited, gang? Who's excited? Who's excited? Oh, let me change the where we're at. We're now on Diablo 4 officially. The reason I have to rush this is the PoE fucking thing is in 2 hours. So we gotta get the ball rolling. Jesus, I don't even know how content creators do this, man. So I would have to do these 2 streams, edit these videos. Oh man, I fucked up, huh? Okay, so the smart thing to do would be to start recording this, to snip this, edit it while I'm on chat, post it on YouTube, and it loads while we're doing the other stream, post that. Oh my god. I need better internet. I need better internet. Okay. Time for some disappointment. Hell yeah. We'll beat the new expansion before you beat Endwalker? No way. There's no way that's gonna happen. I'm totally gonna win, guys. What's going on here? Alright. Let's see. Yeah, we'll go to YouTube real quick. I need to eat my oatmeal. My oatmeal has been there. How long? My oatmeal has been sitting there for 2 hours, 59 minutes, and 22 seconds. Alright. So we're gonna eat oatmeal really fast and then do campfire. Alright, ready, gang? Look, my oatmeal. Look, it's like stuck. That's... It's ice cold. It's fucking ice cold, bro. Alright, I'm gonna go to bed for real now. Okay, I'm gonna eat some oatmeal really fast, and then we're gonna start that. You said that 30 minutes ago. Well, Echo was gonna go to bed, but then they were thinking, and they were like, sword state, bro, sword state. So they had to go pop off. And then we went off a 30-minute tangent, and then, you know, here we are. Well, did I forget the sugar? I may have forgotten the sugar. This is not very good. It's not very good. No. I definitely forgot the sugar. Yeah. Yep, that was something. Alright, let me get a spoonful of sugar and some tea, gang. Be right back. Oh my god. And then we'll go into the fire chat. I need to finish this oatmeal. Alright, we're gonna give ourselves a timer. We got 7 minutes to finish oatmeal. You guys ready? Alright. Here we go. Oh, it's so cold. This is terrible. Should have ate this before stream. Okay. No, we're here. We're here for it. We're here. Does oatmeal expand? I feel like it's growing. The skip it already happened? Well, no, I'm trying to eat my oatmeal before I get to this. I'm not trying to eat oatmeal while this is happening. So the timer is a challenge to myself. So I have 6 minutes to speed. Oh shit, my pants. See what you're doing? I have 6 minutes to speed eat this oatmeal. Now I have to get a napkin. You're ruining my speed run here. It was 6 minutes. Any percentage speed run for oatmeal. Now I had to get a napkin out. Speed run is ruined. Now I gotta get back to chugging. All right, here we go. Why is it so oatmeal-y? It's so cold. It's because it's cold. If it was warm, it'd be more delicious. Yeah, it was my fault. I let it sit for 3 hours while the Final Fantasy 14 stream was happening. Yeah. 3-hour old oatmeal. Pretty good. It's just cold. Super cold. Goodness gracious. Never knew eating oatmeal was a challenge. Alright, here we go. Almost there, gang. Almost there. Alright. That was terrible. Alright. Gonna put it with this. We're gonna put our dish away real quick. And we'll be right back with these 3 minutes. The show starts. Hi, Boogie. You can't go outside. You'll be like a hot dog. You'll be cooked. Alright. Look at that. Fucking deuce, goddamn it. Have you been a good sprout for us today? Jesus Christ. I should have not have read that when I was fucking drinking. Oh my god. Tea almost came out of my nose. That's a good one. Have you been a good sprout for us today? Oh my god. Don't make fun of me being a sprout, man. It's a real condition. Alright. Let's see if we can do some streamer prog. Alright? We're gonna try to record this and see Jesus. And see if we can upload this. Alright, we need to be able to breathe though. We need more tea to clear our throats. That was terrible to come back to. Okay. Okay. Wow, this was the shortest campfire ever. It's only like an hour long, less than an hour. Okay. Alright. Boy, oh boy. Wow, that really fucked me up. Okay. Yeah, that was a good one. That really fucked me up. Alright. Alright. We're back. We're back. We're back. We're back. We're back. Alright. 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 Wait. We're back. See? We're good. We're good. Alright. So, gang. 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 Campfire chat. Who's excited? Who's excited? What's gonna happen? Another barb nerf. Necro going from 3rd, 4th to 5th. Sorcerer's gonna be fixed. Barbarian's gonna come back. Game's getting shut down. Who's excited? Who's excited? I'm excited. I'm so excited. Let's get to it. Ooh. Oh. Oh, beautiful. They started off just how we like it. The beautiful trailer for season 1.
Because although a great evil is receding from Sanctuary,
True.
a new festering curse now spreads its corruption across the land. More dangerous, more malignant than I could have imagined.
Oh, yes.
I have found a way to stop this plague.
I'm bringing friends in to join in on the bullying. No.
And turn it to our advantage in destroying them.
D4 good, D4 good.
But I cannot do this alone. My allies have fallen. My strength is dwindling. The malignant are relentless and without mercy. I need help. I need you.
There it is. Season 1. Who's excited?
Happy Friday, everyone.
Who's that guy?
To another Diablo 4 Campfire chat. My name is Adam Fletcher. I am the Associate Director of Community here on Diablo.
Lead class
Joined here by
designer.
Joe Shelley, Game Director for Diablo 4. Mr. Joe Pipora, which you guys know of, and Joe as well, I guess. So, I mean, familiar faces.
Sure.
Associate Director for Diablo 4, and of course, Adam Jackson. Brand new face here. He is our lead class designer for Diablo 4. We have a lot to talk about today.
Yep.
In fact, just note, there's 2 Adams, 2 Joes, so this is going to get really confusing here. And we were thinking about, like, maybe we do like a battle royale or something like that to, you know, determine who talks next or whatever. But I will say we actually do have a lot to talk about. In fact, I would almost say this is like dev update stream worthy.
Here we go.
Campfire Plus.
Campfire Plus, yeah.
Easily.
Plus.
Yeah.
It's like new game plus or whatever.
Okay.
But we do have a lot.
You guys
to
better
talk
deliver.
about,
That's all I'm saying.
Specifically around patch 1.1.1.
1.
Did I say enough ones?
Yeah, you did.
Yes.
111. Patch 111.
We did.
We are going to.
They are the sacrificial pawns.
Changes that are going to be coming to that.
No, you gotta understand. Joe Pipura is super pumped about the game. He loves the game. He's like a super old school guy that like just been playing probably like since D1. They love the game. There's passion. Joe Shelley, I can see that he loves the game. We don't know Adam Jackson. Adam Fletcher has been nothing but cool. I've even reached out on Twitter. He's replied, so he's legit. They're trying, is just that maybe they just don't have the team that can execute the vision, you know? You said, why hire $180,000 programmer? You can have one for $85,000, you know?
Patch. And of course, we're also going to be talking about the dates of when that patch is actually going to be hitting, along with when players will be seeing the patch notes, which will be well before the actual.
Yeah, the way the inventory system
hit,
works.
we'll
That's what I'm
talk about
saying.
that here in a second. I know we do want to jump right into it because we do have a ton to talk about. So I will actually throw it over here to Adam Jackson because I know he wants to talk a little bit about kind of like the class balance and what we're thinking about for 111.
Yeah, totally. Glad to be here. We have a lot to talk about. So first I want to kind of frame this in our goals and what we're going to be doing in this patch in the immediate future, and then talking a little bit about kind of how the class team feels about classes and kind of what we're thinking in a more mid to long-term space. So for this patch, we've got a lot going on. One of our goals is kind of, I think, obvious to the community. We want to kind of improve the effectiveness and...
We want everybody to come back. We heard you stop playing the game. Yeah, we want you to come back.
And the fun of the Sorcerer and the Barbarian. So we've got a lot of changes coming in there, and I think I want to frame this in 2 ways of kind of what we're thinking about the Sorcerer and then what we're thinking about with the Barbarian. Because they both have kind of different things going on. For the Sorcerer in this patch, we're focusing on reducing something that we call Kiss Curse mechanics, which is kind of, I know, a very designery term. But it's this idea that we give you a really cool power effect, and then we kind of take something away or make it nerfed or nerf some other part of you in some way, usually for balance reasons, to make sure that it's not...
Sork was the only class that really got hit with the negatives. You have a buff, but then they'll take this shit away. Other classes just pretty much had buffs. So that was
just
rough for Sorks.
Yeah, usually the idea there is like, to your point, it's like, so we really have like, 20% we can afford to give you, but if we take 10% of something else away, we can give you 30% or 45% and feel a little bit better about that.
Exactly. Usually it's to sell a fantasy in a really strong way, but we can't like do that justifiably without just breaking the mechanic. But we found out in a lot of ways we've been a little too harsh with that, and so we're going to try and reduce or remove that in some cases. And then the other one is late game survivability. We know that the sorcerers typically have a tough time, when they start pushing those later Nightmare Dungeon tiers. And so we're going to be looking at ways to increase that specifically. And an example of that Kiss Curse mechanic is the Serpentine aspect. If you know that one, it's the one where you can spawn an additional Hydra, but it reduces the duration of your Hydras. That's just no longer going to reduce the duration. It's actually going to increase it. So that's an example of something. We'll go into more detail later. For the Barbarian,
so you get extra Hydra.
The early game and making it feel better and just more fluid. We're going to be improving the Fury generation that you get from your basic skills.
Oh,
and then
nice.
We're also looking at the late game for the Barbarian by making a lot of their uniques more attractive and effective. So you're going to see
all of the uniques are fucking garbage.
We're going to be changing around usually about one affix per unique from something that really isn't that attractive for players to something that they really, really want, which we think will help make those items really exciting.
I don't think so, but we'll see.
Now, when we make changes to items, specifically items like uniques, many of these changes only take effect on new items, right? Like I think we have an example of the Hellhammer here.
Yeah, kind of. It's a little bit more complex.
Okay, so we are going from two-handed bludgeoning, critical strike. Whoa! Oh, you're adding critical strike? From crowd control to critical strike damage. Oh, yes. Very good. Very pog. Damage to burning enemies. Do you cause a burn? Upheaval ignites. Perfect. Damage reduction from enemies that are burning. That's a good hammer. That's a good hammer. There you go. I mean, is it the best hammer? Biz? One can really, one can argue that. It gives you no vulnerability. And then only gives you 60% overpower. See, the thing is, my problem is with this one right here, with the main stat. Because if you give critical to a two-handed sword, it just makes it more attractive no matter what. So, but it's good. It's a good direction.
So we're gonna delve into one of our examples of what we're.
So two-handed swords could become pog. Even single-handed swords could become even more pog.
But when we update a unique item, we actually update Hellhammer in two different ways. So we're increasing the duration that the ground is going to be ignited and burning, and then we're also increasing the damage. And that's the actual unique effect power, the exciting thing that the item does. But you can see here on Hellhammer, we're also doing another change where we're actually granting you bonus critical strike damage and removing the bonus damage to crowd control enemies, right? So on the left, what you see here, when you log into the game, after this patch, the left version is what you're going to get. So you're not going to get the critical strike damage change where the actual item affix there, the rule changed, but you are going to get the updates to the upheaval, lasting longer, and doing more damage. On the right, when you find your new items after the patch, you're going to get the new affixes, the new rules, and things on the item.
So new versions of these items will have all of the buffs we're talking about.
New versions will have everything new. And the old versions will get the new stuff on the actual legendary effects, but then you won't have the new item stats on it.
Yeah, the new stats. You'll have to try to get a new one.
So going back to kind of other things that we're looking at. So that's the Sorcerer and the Barbarian what we're focusing on. Then generally across all classes, we're doing a few other things as well.
That's it.
We're looking at builds that aren't really hitting a high enough power level, and we're going to be just buffing them and increasing the power of them, so they should feel better and be more competitive. We're also going to be looking at increasing the attractiveness of kind of uniques across the board. We're focusing on Sorcerer and Barbarian for this patch. But we actually believe that we can do this kind of thing across the board. There's a lot of uniques that we think aren't really hitting the mark.
All of them.
It's something that's kind of a tough thing that we talk about.
Druid has a couple that work.
Because, the roles and the things that the uniques have as far as their item power are all fixed, right? They can't re-roll different stats all over the place. So we could very easily just make, all unique's really good by putting all the best stats on the items, right? That's
Yeah,
an easy
true.
thing to do
Let's
for us.
go.
But we kind of have a push and pull there where we don't want to just make all of them clearly the best items in the game because they have all the best stats and they have really good powers.
Hell yeah.
We want there to be something that's really unique and attractive about them, and you have to kind of think of how you're going to fit these into your character.
Show the chat.
But we think
Well,
that
this
we are
is a
just not-
different chat. This is on ShmooTube. There's no live chat on this one. If you want to see the chat, oh, I gotta pull this other video up. Okay.
on a lot of them, so we're boosting them a little bit and then just kind of see.
Welcome
But
back.
we think that we are just not hitting the mark on a lot of them, so we're boosting them a little bit and then just kind of seeing how that goes.
But yeah, see, let's see what chat is saying. There. See, massive W, Hail Hydra. Nothing too crazy. LL. Why though bad stats are bad stats? See? D4 saved. Everybody's excited. It wasn't good when I was doing it before. Alright, let's get back to it again.
Attractive about them, and you have to kind of think of how you're going to fit these into your character's build. But we think that we are just not hitting the mark on a lot of them, so we're boosting them a little bit and then just kind of seeing how that
True.
goes. Next, we're going to be looking at opening up build-specific designs to be more widely useful. So there's a lot of effects on legendary powers and in other places where this effect only works in a very narrow use case, like only on a single skill or a single group of skills, or we're using a certain proc to get it. And in many cases, we're just going to open that up to be more widely usable so that players can actually, use them in more different builds or different ways. One example of this that we'll go over later is Chain Lightning's upgrade, Greater Chain Lightning.
Mm-hmm.
Currently, it gives you bonus. The bounces of Chain Lightning do bonus damage when it bounces off of you, and we're going to change that so that it just does bonus damage when it bounces off of anything. So instead of being kind of a narrow use case where you're only using it like on a boss or a single target enemy and getting value, you'll just get it a lot more often now.
Yeah, it feels like a much better lightning range skill now in that way. It's easier for me to clear packs, so it's good. I like that.
Yeah, totally. So that's kind of what we're looking at for this patch.
Okay, so we talked last week about sort of our things that we want to do, like going forward in the game, other things we want to do. Not all of that stuff is in this patch.
Yeah, right? No, we have a lot of talks on our team. We have a lot of things that we're thinking about and going on. I thought it'd be really good also to kind of talk a little bit about how we feel about more longer term goals and things about the game. So these aren't coming in this patch, but things that we're thinking about that'll come in the future that the team's kind of focus on. The first one is kind of finding ways to bring different types of damage closer together. As I'm sure many of you in the community know, vulnerable and crit are really, really strong right now. Kind of a lot of the meta is about, you make an enemy vulnerable and then you do bonus damage to them and then you stack as much crit strike chance and crit damage as you can and then you blow them up, right?
True.
Our game actually was foundationally made with other
gameplay.
types of builds that aren't only those in mind, right? We have like damage over time or dot damage, things like firewall.
That sounds dangerous.
Does a lot of this.
That takes too much
We also
time.
have overpower as a mechanic in our game, and these other different ways to build your character. We want them to have parity with vulnerable and crit damage. So we're going to be trying to find. Our goal is to find a way, and we're working on it right now.
They're going to
that
nerf
all those
crit
different
again.
ways of dealing damage have a lot of parity. So
And
no matter if you're an overpower build or a crit build or a damage over time build, you will be relatively equal in power to all of the other different types of ways to play.
How can you make a DOT
So
build?
another one that we're looking at is adding scaling to builds and effects that don't really scale very well. In the game. This is something that I think is a big opportunity for us to open up just excitement in different builds in the game. And what I mean by this is we have a lot of legendary powers and effects that like spawn a new thing.
Equal in power, aka nerf. True.
Powers that spawn earthquakes or dust devils. Another one is the necromancer has like things that leave shadow trails on the ground that deal damage, and these things, they deal what we call flat damage, which is like we give it a damage number, and then that's how much it does, and then that damage number kind of scales with player level. But what we find is that a lot of these things are really good in the early and mid game when they drop, but then when you get to the really late game, they kind of fall off really hard. And what we want to do is find ways to add scaling so that the player can opt into, like making a build out of these things. So if I want to be an Earthquake Barbarian or a Dust Devil Barbarian, I can actually do that, and it's supported by the game.
Massive
So
Dust
that's
Devil
something that we're
Barb.
really excited about because we think that'll open up a lot more build possibilities.
I mean, that
Ultimates
sounds
are kind of
fun.
in this range as well.
You whirlwind and send out 5
But
tornadoes.
similarly, you know, a lot of ultimates are really strong in the early and mid game. You take it, it blows up the screen, feels great. And then in the late game, a lot of ultimates that we see that are just used because they buff the player in some way.
Yeah, they don't blow up the screen the same way anymore.
Yeah, right. I want you to be excited to use Bone Storm because Bone Storm is awesome, not because it gives you a buff, right?
No,
Or,
Bone
there's
Storm
other
just gives me
ways,
regen. That's
So
what it does.
That's kind of something that we're
That's all
thinking,
Bone Storm. Bone
in the
Storm's.
mid to long term.
That's all Bone
to
Storm
make the
does.
game kind of
Let's
open
see.
up and have more builds available.
My
So we've been talking here
Barbarian.
a little bit about.
That's the worst pause system. Let's see. Barbarian Ultimate is literally just another shout, or you can use Call of the Ancients to summon Punchy, Spinny, and Stabby. The other two I don't really see used much. Well, the shout buffs you. Rogue, I use Shadow Death Trap, which is actually blows shit up on the screen and it pulls everything towards the center, which is actually the Rogue is pretty good. I don't know any ultimates for the Druid. In the Necro, you can either summon an army of ghost skeletons or use Bone Storm. But there's a blood one too. I forget which one that is. I think it's a blood wave. But Bone Storm is mainly just a small storm that I use to regen mana or whatever essence. So I mean, yeah. Ultimates don't really ultimates need to be put on a separate button. Like I should be able to hit something else and use ultimate. I think that'd be a great idea.
Grizzly Rage or other ones, right? So that's kind of something that we're thinking about in the mid to long term to make the game kind of open up and have more builds available.
Make
So we've been
ultimates
talking here
ultimate?
A little bit about sort of our philosophy here.
Okay.
We're about to get into patch notes. We're
Oh,
about to
boy.
talk about Sorcerer.
Oh, boy.
But we thought that it was important to talk a little bit about this philosophy, both because we want to be very transparent in terms of like how we're thinking about the game and what kinds of like why we're making changes.
Okay.
Both so that when you see changes, you can understand what we're thinking, like what we're going for, and also so that we
Yeah, that's
can,
how I'm feeling. That's
incorporate
vulnerable.
feedback from the community, feedback from you.
More vulnerable nerfs,
Yeah,
more
and that
crit
goes down even
nerfs.
to the format for this particular live stream, right? So like we're gonna go through a lot of details really soon, which I think people are really excited about. I hope people are really excited about because we're gonna have a lot of those. And then afterwards, we want to hear back from the community about like how how this worked. Like, was this the best way to get this information? Did you get a lot of good data from us, and do you understand why we're doing making the changes that we are? Right, and to Joe's point, again, it is really useful for you to understand these things. It's going to help with the feedback that you give us back. We know whether we're hitting it or not.
Yeah, and this is like a multi-stage type of thing. So we're actually gonna. You guys are about to see a ton.
I understand it. I don't understand why it's happening now. This should have been done like beta-ish, post-beta. After testing. From a multi-billion-dollar corporation. Like Activision, Blizzard, King.
Ton of slides here in a second, going through pretty much all the different detailed balance changes that are coming across the classes. But then, like we said, like we do plan on releasing patch notes so that you guys can actually read them in more detail. And in those patch notes,
Nah,
will
man,
be,
this is
you
their
know,
fourth
additional
Diablo,
information,
not
such
enough
as, like,
time to
all the
figure
bug
out the
fixes
game
and so forth that
philosophy.
will be coming in.
Well, the thing is, yes and no. This team did not make Diablo 1 and 2, which are the credited, the game breaking. Diablo 1, I think, was like either the most or one of the most selling PC games of all time. So this team made Diablo 3, though. I think did they make Diablo 2 Resurrected, the remake? I don't know. But they're in charge of Diablo 3, Diablo Immortal, and Diablo 4. From what people have said that have played Diablo 3, personally I haven't, a lot of people are saying they did not take what they learned in Diablo 3 and apply it to Diablo 4. Like I'm saying, like for me, I'm ruling more on the side of incompetence in programming and testing than anything else. Just not knowing what they're doing and not doing it correctly. This makes sense. These patches were needed. Vulnerable was hitting way too hard. There almost was no more room to ramp up because we're gonna be hitting. People are hitting millions. That one dude hit like billions. So there's ways to cheese the system to start hitting insane amount of damage. So, but this should have happened before season 1 even came out. Not now, but it is what it is. Let's see what happens
with the game.
Wonder what chat has to say.
1-1-1, so.
Do we know when we're getting the? We plan on releasing those?
So we are. Look at this.
No more nerves.
Talk about it later.
Zoom out.
Sorry.
Fix your game.
Now you're just gonna spoil it. We're actually gonna release patch notes, full patch notes. You guys will see these patch notes first here on the stream. But
Can we zoom out?
We will release. Patch
Everybody
notes
wants to
next
zoom out.
Wednesday, on August 2nd, so that everyone will end up seeing it. We'll talk about the patch date here at the end of the stream. We're closer to the end of the stream.
Yeah, so just wait for the end of the stream. We'll talk about when that's going to go out.
But what we do want to do is we do want to jump straight into the balance changes and so forth.
Yeah.
And we do want to start off
Here we
with the sorcerers. So we have a lot of different slides and changes here that we do.
Let's get to it. All right, flickering firebolt. Change the firebolt generates 2 mana when hitting an enemy. You go, pew, hits it, mana in your bank. All right. Fireball. Increase radius by 50%. Okay. Fireball's crit damage increased by 20. Bonus increased to 30 if your fireball pops off. Lightning is changes from instead of bouncing off of you dealing bonus damage, it can bounce off of anything and it hits bonus damage. Which that's how it should have been. Chance to form crackling energy. Just a freaking minor buff there.
Adam, I know, wants to go through them all.
Yeah, totally. So I think what I'll do is just give you a few moments to look at the screen and kind of see what we're doing, and then talk high level.
Time to play more Terraria.
So flickering
That sounds
firebolt
fun.
is one we're
I definitely need to figure out how to build the world
when you hit an enemy. Before it was only generated when you hit a burning
and
enemy.
fight bosses.
So when you would just try and cast firebolt, without doing anything else, you would just always miss the first hit of getting the mana, which felt bad a lot.
That always felt bad.
Yeah, it says negative feedback loop. So
Move your camera. I can't read. You don't have to read. My beautiful voice read it to you. All right. I am trying to learn the game. Yeah, me too. It's a good game. I like it. I haven't played for ages though. I gotta go back to it. I'm ready on my hardcore character. I set up a rogue character and I set up a mage. But the only one that's like actual be fun to play is gonna be my hardcore one. The rest are more for just fun. I haven't started messing around yet. Alright, let's go. 3, 2, 1. Hit it.
Feel nicer. You still feel nice about burning things and piercing, but you just get it more often. Probably another big one here is the greater chain lightning change I talked about, where every time that it bounces, the next hit would deal damage rather than only bouncing off of you. And then we're also
5%.
Other choice for destructive chain lightning, so you get more crackling energies. Next one, let's go to the passives. These are all the key passives at the bottom of the.
So you get bonus damage, 5% more. Additional functionality. Both bonuses granted for 3 seconds when hitting a boss with a critical. Change to your burning effects deal 20% increased damage plus an additional 2% per unique source of burning you have applied. So there's more than one way of burning?
Tree. Isu's Ferocity is a big one. You're going to see a lot of these kinds of changes where it used to work kind of in a more narrow use case, and now it works in a case that it didn't, so that's just generically good. This one, it used to not really work on bosses very well. You had to kill enemies by critting them to get the bonus, and now you can also get it during boss fights by just hitting the boss and critting them. So you'll just have uptime and usefulness in a part.
Oh, so they added that for bosses. That's a good buff, yeah.
Next, for Paragon, we're going to talk, let's see, we've got...
And for the new boss, I don't know if you've seen the new Revenger or whatever. I fought him yesterday. You can be intense in the beginning.
These are a lot of the defensive changes that we talked about. So you've got some damage reduction increases to a lot of the glyphs and nodes across the board. Again, we're targeting that late game survivability for the sorcerer.
Damage reduction. All you see is damage reduction plus 5, damage reduction plus 5, damage reduction plus 12%. That's a fat one. Everyone's going to want this one. That's a fat damage reduction. Wow, that's good. Damn.
Opens up more ways to play and just makes it more usable is the Searing Heat Legendary node. This one is when you cast Fireball or Meteor, now it just increases your crit
That
strike
warding
chance
one may
across
be
the
worth it.
board,
Yes,
so
it
that
will
makes
be
you
worth
get
it.
that crit strike
25% damage
chance
reduction.
on them.
Yeah.
Damage reduction is actually like extremely strong in
Yes.
Diablo 4.
It's really, really good.
Yeah.
So these things
Guys,
can be pretty impactful.
please,
Yep.
please use damage reduction, guys. We swear it's strong.
All right, so here we've got some more Paragon nodes. Again, damage reduction across the board. Keep in mind that also on some of the rare nodes, you can see them twice in a board rather than only once for the glyphs. So that means that this is actually like doubled if you go for both of them.
Nice.
And then we're also increasing the maximum life bonus on a couple of nodes.
Yep, I
Again,
see
just
it.
targeting that
I see it.
ability.
Cool.
And now legendary, sir. So there's a lot to chew on here.
There's
So-
your first one, Serpentine.
Yep.
Okay, legendary weapons. Serpentine aspect, they got changed. You may have one additional Hydra, and Hydra's duration is increased by 14 to 24%. Oh, yeah. Hydras are coming back, watch, I'm telling you. Aspect of conflagration. Well, burning damage. That's a 10% increase. That could be good. They're trying to promote people to use fire. Since everybody was using ice and lightning. Change the increase. Meteor. Yeah, they fucked up meteor builds. Meteor builds were shit. Movement speed duration from 4 to 6. Ooh! Change to ball lightning orbits around you and deals 15 to 25%. That's cool. Wow, ball lightning will be stronger. Ball lightning was what I was thinking of making a build. That'd be cool. But it takes like 5 seconds to get the whole build going.
Yep, there it is. That's one we talked about before.
A lot.
So now you can have a Hydra active, and instead of the duration being decreased, it's actually going to be increased. Next, we've got some, again, damage buff numbers, so things that are underperforming. Aspect of 3 curses is one that I'm particularly excited about. Before, this one used to be that it only increased your crit damage of meteor only and only against healthy enemies. So it was one skill and only healthy enemies.
Oh, so now
it's going to work on meteor and fireball,
and
and
it
you
doubles.
get half of the bonus all the time, and then an extra bonus against healthy enemies. So now you can use this in builds that you weren't able to at all before.
That's pog.
The next one is pretty good, is gravitational aspect. This one was it used to reduce your damage in exchange for the lightnings orbiting around you. Now we're going to increase it.
What?
So again,
That's actually gonna that's gonna be S tier.
Next we've
That's
got,
gonna be S tier build.
recharging aspect. This one was kind of similar to the change that we
Fucking
did.
as soon as this
Lightning
patch comes out,
to
lightning
that
orbs is gonna be S
baseline.
tier.
It used to only give you mana when it bounced off of you. Now it's going to give you mana when it bounces off of everything. So again, a lot more useful.
Oh fuck, chain lightning is gonna be so good to level up. Oh, I might have to pop off that sorcerer, but I don't know. That might be too late by then. By the time this patch comes out, I already have a whole bunch of other shit I gotta do. Yeah, that's the sad thing. It might already be too late. I am almost done with the season. I've already got one character almost to 70. I don't know, 65 almost, not to 70. That's very hopeful. Are we hired? I don't remember. So, but it may be too late. There's just other games coming out. We have other plans. And as soon as we're done with the season, beat the boss, beat the Uber fights, we're done. We beat the season until next season. So maybe next season, but it might be too late for this one.
And in combination with that Unbroken Tether, I think Chain Lightning players are going to be eating pretty this patch. We're also increasing the bonuses of Chain Lightning that you get when that proc happens. So,
Bro, Chain
lots of
Lightning is going to
bounces,
be
they give you lots of
the
damage.
leveling up
Fun.
spec for Mage now.
We're also putting a new legendary into the game. This is the Mage Lord's aspect. This one makes your Veer's Mastery Key passive, the damage reduction there, be increased by quite a bit so that you can survive when you're in that melee range.
Damn. That's a huge buff.
And let me see here. Some Snow Veiled aspect is getting a pretty big generic buff, where before it just gave you Unstoppable when you used Frost Armor. I believe it's got to be Frost Armor. And then, but now it also gives you bonus armor when you use it as well, just generally more useful. Incendiary aspect terrifies me, but we're doing it. This one used to be that it procced off of all of your burning damage. So your burning damage could give you mana, and now it's going to just do it off of your pyromancy skills damage. So this opens up Meteor, Fireball, all of those other skills. That
okay. Meteor restoring mana.
I think that's good for that one. And then for uniques, we've got the glow.
I'm not coming back till there's solid in-game mechanic that incentives me. How to say that properly? Incentives? No, that entices you to come back. That's gonna be a couple seasons. It's gonna be at least 2 to 3 seasons, but it'll eventually get there. It will.
The Illuminator. This is the one where your fireballs bounce and deal AoE damage. Before, when you got this, it was kind of in a very weird place where the bounces could do it pretty often in such a way where you'd only hit an enemy once with a bounce.
Okay.
And we have to put this damage penalty on it because, you can hit enemies multiple times with it, and it's AoE, and gives you a bunch of procs of all of your stuff, so it's really, really strong.
Yeah. What's wrong with
But because you could only hit an enemy once, a lot of times this was just a damage nerf for your character.
Yeah, you'd bounce it one time on a monster, and that was that.
And now you got nerfed for getting unique, right?
That's
that never feels good. So we reduced the distance that it bounces a little bit, so it should be more easier to consistently hit an enemy twice. And then we also reduced that damage penalty, so now no matter what, if you hit an enemy twice, it's a damage bonus. And then we also replaced one of its affixes from damage to stunned to lucky hit to restore resource. And since this thing, bounces and hits enemies a lot of time, the lucky hit procs are very powerful with this. So we think this will be a lot more attractive for players.
They need to put it to testing.
All right, moving on to the barbarian.
Oh shit! Here we are. What have you done to my boy? What have you done to my boy? All right. Bash, Flay, Frenzy, Lunging Strike, Double Damage, and Rupture. Well, so we have the first 4 are our basics, are now giving more Fury. Lunging Strike went from 10 to 12. Frenzy is 2 to 3. Fury is 10 to 13. 11 to 13 and Flay. Fury. Bash. 11 to 13. Flay is 10 to 13. Double Swing is getting a 10% buff. Double Swing builds are on the come up again. Rupture. Oh, fuck. Rupture. Damage increase from 45 to 70. That is quite a good buff. Okay. And Charge. Charge needed a buff. Nobody really used Charge much. Vulnerable duration increased.
Barbarian. So, like I said before, we're
It's good.
increasing the Fury generation of all of those basic skills.
Mm-hmm.
So you're just going to get more Fury in the early game so that you can, do that basic core skill loop a little more often, so it should be more fun. Double Swings gain a damage buff. Ruptures gain a damage buff. Charges gain a damage buff. And one of the enhancements is increasing that vulnerable duration, so it should hopefully be more attractive.
I see.
One thing I do want to note is, like, even on if we go back to the other slide, like,
Sure.
a lot of people are going, like, Fury gain 11 to 13 and, like, 10 to 13, and they're always, like, noting, like, well, that doesn't feel like a big number and so forth, but I think players...
By percentage, it's really big.
Yeah, by percentage,
it also
it's actually
scales
really
with a
big.
whole lot of other stuff. It is.
I'll be right back. 2 seconds, gang. There's a freaking nail or something in my hand. Boogie. Oh, some shit bothering me in my hand. Alright. Let's get back to it. What'd they do to my boy?
10 to 13, and they're always, like, noting, like, well, that doesn't feel like a big number and so forth, but I think
By
players...
percentage, it's really big.
Not huge, but if you're using the
A whole lot of
attack...
other stuff, it gets spooky when we do too much in a percent-wise.
Exactly. So I think...
because of how everything works in our game.
I think people are seeing some of the smaller numbers, but not realizing that, other things, obviously, it scales with other things and other, and it mixes in with whether other gear that you have and so forth. So this is just a
Resource
baseline
region,
number,
gear, and
And
everything.
you have to remember that obviously when that number gets tweaked, everything.
They
else
don't
gets
want you to
tweaked.
have
It's-
permanent
I want to point that
fury.
out too when we do like damage increases where it might seem small because it's increasing the base that everything else multiplies and scales on. It can be a bit. I mean, sometimes it's not as much. We can go and do it again, right? But it's scary and
Yeah.
risky. So we have to think about that because it's very easy to be like, oh, just make it 20, and now late game you're just like bashing once and then getting all your fury back or something. Right?
Sweet. Well, why not?
All right, so violent upheaval. This one gives you berserking, and it used to be that you had
The
to damage
camera's
2 or
fucked.
more enemies or 3 or more enemies to get a better buff, and now we're adding bosses to that. So when you're in a boss fight, you're just going to be able to get and chain that berserking again, making it usable in a part of the game where it didn't used to be. We've also got gushing wounds is one I think worth calling out. This is the key passive.
Damn it.
We're increasing the scaling of your bleed to crit damage, and then also your bleed damage when you overpower an enemy is going up significantly.
Yeah, that's huge.
Yeah, so now when you overpower and get that AoE blood burst, it's actually going to do quite a bit of chunky damage, we're hoping. Walking Arsenal is another one worth calling out here. We heard some feedback that it's really hard to keep up all 3 of your weapon types when you're doing Walking Arsenal.
Yes.
Usually 2 is fairly easy. You can have a basic and a core that are different weapons, but getting that 3rd one to consistently happen, especially if you're using a cooldown skill like Charge or Leap or something like that, it can be hard to maintain that. So we're just increasing it to make it more forgiving, which should also increase all of those legendaries and other powers and uniques and stuff.
That was possible for me when I had Deathblow charges, but whenever I was only running like 1 Deathblow charge at a time, like that build just didn't
Yeah,
really come
Deathblow's
online.
probably one of the more one of the easier ones to get, and even then it can be a little hard, right?
Yeah, for sure.
I
It's
have
great
dug a
opening
lot. Right on. I love it.
So next, talk legendaries.
Makes me want to play.
Let me see. One of them, the aspect of Unrelenting Fury here, is one worth calling out, where again you're going to get a benefit when hitting bosses. So now it's useful in a part of the game that it wasn't used in at all.
Oh.
Another one is the aspect of, or 2 earthquake aspects there at the bottom, Bukathos and Earthquake. We're increasing the amount of damage
10%.
reduction and damage bonus. So if you want to do that Earthquake build, like I said before, we want those earthquakes.
They
to do
really
damage
want
to be meaningful,
earthquake
but in the
builds.
meantime, while you're standing in them, those buffs on you are going to be a little bit more powerful. So hopefully we can incentivize people to.
So Kratos builds are going to pop off for a bit.
All right, next, so uniques. We've got a lot of stuff here with barbarian uniques. Again, the high level goal here is we're generally improving.
Crab hit me for 50% of my health. Get armor, nub. You gotta mine some good materials so you can get armor. Start with gold or platinum if you can. Let's see. I do have armor. Yeah, well, I bet you have nub armor. Probably have some wooden armor or something like a scrub. Probably have some grass armor like a nub. It's a metal armor. Make a crafting station. That being a scrub. Alright, let's get back to it. So, Fields of Crimson. Hi, Bugly. I hear you bugling over there. Damage increased. Hope you get nerfed next match. How are we gonna get nerfed? We're gonna have a level 100 character, and it doesn't even matter at that point. Bro, if they do nerf my 100 character, bro, I'm gonna be so upset. Physical damage affix replaced with vulnerable damage. Oh, that's good for the Manicness Opus. 100 steps attacks. Reduce evades cooldown replaced with bonus evade charges. Pog. Damage against stun enemies replaced with bonus movement. That's good. Battle trance. Basic skill damage replaced with cooldown reduction. Bonus attack speed. That's cool. I mean, I don't know if it makes them fucking useful at all.
Being just the base thing the unique does, and then also trying to replace an item stat that wasn't very attractive or not as attractive with one that we know players really, really like to make these meaningful for them.
I don't know.
So Fields of Crimson, this is the one where you do blood pools when you rupture enemies. We're increasing the damage. We're increasing the damage that enemies take standing in pools, which is a pretty big buff. And then we're also changing the rupture cooldown reduction with bonus crit strike damage. And again, combine that with the bonus in the key passive where the
From
bleed
11 to
damage,
70, right?
yep, where that scales better. That'll just be quite a bit more damage across
That's awesome.
the board. Hellhammer we talked about. Ramalandi's Magnum Opus, we're replacing the physical damage affix with vulnerable damage.
Okay.
100,000 steps. The base affix of the boots, we're replacing the evade cooldown affix with just more evade charges. And then we're also replacing the damage against stun enemies with bonus movement speed, which you'll see a couple times in boots that we're doing because we know how attractive that stat is.
We need movement speed.
Let's talk about.
Sorry.
So,
Bro, they're buffing rogues, bro. They're really buffing rogues. They're really buffing rogues, bro. Rogues don't need a buff. Rogues are the most balanced S tier builds right now. Rogues have like the 8 best builds in the game. That's like all their builds. You can pretty much go almost any build and not go wrong. Bet you wish you stayed rogue? No, that's why I didn't go rogue. Like I tested a rapid fire rogue. It's good. It's good. I would build one. At level 60, it would probably pop the fuck off. You know, but I shouldn't have to play a rogue to play a fucking good class. That's something I should be able to play a stupid necromancer and fucking, you know, and pop off. But why are they buffing rogues? Okay, let's calm down. What are they buffing on rogues? Invigorating strikes? They don't need to buff invigorating strikes. They don't need to buff the damage on poison trap. Right there, and the rest need buff. The rest is okay.
I was just going to say we said that we were going to buff sorceress and barbarian. We're going to make some changes in 1.1.
Yeah.
But Adam, you've been working on. We don't want to leave the other 3 classes out, right?
Yeah, totally.
Most of these changes are on that you've seen are for Sork and Barb.
Yeah.
But I think we had some time to make some changes to the other classes.
Bro, watch Necromancer get nerfed.
We totally did, so we can go on here. One thing I do want to call out, though, the focus of the patch is the Sorcerer or the Barbarian, so you're going to see a lot more from them, but we want to give the other classes something exciting as well. Rogues are actually, I think, eating pretty well right now, so they're pretty good. We still found some things of underused things to buff.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Probably one of the more big ones here is Forceful Arrow. We're changing the functionality here so that every time that you cast, third cast of the arrow just pierces all enemies, which is a pretty big, just generic bonus. We got some feedback on Rain of Arrows that it was kind of weird that the second wave was the one that knocked all the enemies down, because a lot of times, you know, you cast a skill and the combat is in a certain state where the enemies are where you want to hit them and probably where you want to CC them, because you usually want to group stuff up to CC them. But because it happens on the second wave, you know, the first wave comes, does a little damage to everything.
They all move.
And then they all move, and then everything goes and falls apart, right? So this just makes it more reliable.
It sets itself up.
It sets itself up, yeah, exactly. Here, let me look if there's anything noteworthy. There's some buffs to things that are underused.
Bro, what is this lucky hit chance increased? Oh my god, damage reduction. Siphoning strikes. That's a fat lucky hit chance. That's like almost a guaranteed lucky hit chance. 85%. Holy shit.
So the aspect of Elusive Menace no longer requires hits to be from close enemies. So again, we're just making things more generically usable. And then for uniques, kind of similar to Barbarian, we found some room here to make a couple stats replaced with things that we know are really, really attractive. So in Wind Force, we replaced the all stats affix with bonus vulnerable damage. And then the Word of Hakan, we replace ultimate damage with cooldown reduction.
Dude, so wait, Wind Force would probably be an actual usable bow. Why do fucking rogues got it? I'd have to check Wind Force stats again. Because I think I could make a rapid fire build with Wind Force.
So Druid, kind of similar to what I said about the Barbarian, about that early game.
Here we go. Druid buffs. Druid. Let's see. The Wolf Pack is getting a buff. I don't know much about Druids, to be honest. But the Wolves are getting a fat buff. Holy shit. They're getting a 5%, like 3-4% attack buff. Or passive damage. Damn. And everything else just gives you a whole bunch of spirit.
Kind of feeling a little bit slow. We're also improving all of the spirit generation of the Druid's basic skills. So across the board, you're just going to be able to get to those core skill casts a little bit easier. We're also improving the passive damage generally of a lot of their companion skills. So your wolves are going to feel better. The both passive and active damage is going up. The upgrades for the wolves are all going to be a little bit more powerful. And then same thing for Ravens, their passive damage is going up. And then Brutal Ravens, this is the one that gives you another little, a couple more little Ravens to go peck your enemies to death. They're also going to peck a little bit harder, so a little bit more fantasy fulfilling there, I think. And then we're also looking at rabies. We know that Poison Druid, like just if I want to do pure Poison Druid, is a little bit behind, so we're really targeting rabies as a pretty meaty upgrade there in its damage. This will also, by the way, improve the legendary, I think it's legendary where your wolves can cast rabies. That's also going to be improved by this. So just that whole archetype will be better.
I guess.
And then for legendaries and the class mechanic, we're just buffing some things that are a little bit underutilized, so they'll just be stronger. And then Necromancer, so here.
Okay. What do we have? What do they do, my class? Bone Spirit. Enhanced Bone Spirit cooldown. Reduction increased. Wait a second. Good. Wither legendary board. Okay. Bonus damage per 40 power increased for 4%. Fine. Empowering Reaper. Damaging enemies with Sever has a 10% chance to spawn Blight. And they want you to use Sever and Blight. Bro, they can necro. That's alright. Aspect of exposed flesh. Lucky hit. Up to a 10% chance to generate 30 defense when hitting vulnerability. What is that?
Here we've got quite a few things going on. Bone Spirit, this is the enhanced Bone Spirit, which is where when you crit enemies with the Bone Spirit, you get cooldown reduction. We're increasing that from 6 to 7 seconds, so it should be a little more friendly to players in this current state of the game. The Wither legendary upgrade here, this is the one where your shadow dot damage is going up, and we added a new way to scale that damage in the legendary space. We got feedback that this really just wasn't scaling enough to be meaningful, even when you invested a lot into willpower. So now you're just going to get a lot more bang for your buck. You're going to do, the requirement is less, so you're going to get more procs of the increase to your damage and chance to proc that damage. And then also just your bonus damage straight up is going to be better. So the shadow builds should be a lot better. Empowering Reaper, we got some feedback that totally makes sense to me now, and a year ago me should have thought of this. But the way that this used to work was Sever would spawn a pool of Blight under enemies, and the chance was based on you critting them. So the idea was you would create a crit build, and then you turn your crit into these pools of damage, right? That sounds kind of cool. But it turns out, crit doesn't work with dots at all. So that pool doesn't get scaled with the way that you make the pool. So it just doesn't work design-wise. I take the blame for that.
Yeah, because you can't crit with your dots. So stacking critical damage on a DOT build is useless. So the way you thought of the entire system, it was wrong. All right, cool, good to know. A year ago.
But now we're changing it so you just have to damage enemies to spawn those pools of light. So now this can actually be more friendly to dot builds. And then aspect of exposed flesh. This one used to have the same effect, but only when hitting vulnerable enemies with bone skills.
Okay.
So now you can just get. We have a new resource mechanic for all the necromancer specs that aren't.
How can they fail that bad? People go to college for this. Like, I repeat myself. Yes, it may be a multi-billion-dollar company, but management. I am thinking it is incompetence. Just gross, like, negligence. That's why it was built in an open sandbox. That's why that's why you load everybody's stash and items when you see any player, because it's easier to do it that way. Could they do it a different way, like PoE does it? Oh, of course they could. It's just a lot more difficult. The frame has to be designed differently. It's just a lot more work has to be put into it. People have to be more technically advanced. So there goes between hiring somebody for $90,000 or hiring somebody for $180,000. I mean, it's like when you go to get your car fixed. How many horror stories do you hear? Not every shop's like that though. So, it is what it is. Oh boy. I'm just upset. Rogue got a buff. I can't believe they buffed Poison Trap. And fucking Necro's not even eating good. That's what it is. Level 100, here we come, baby.
And then here, let me see, probably one of the big ones to call out, even though it's just a number buff, is Aspect of Torment. That Essence Regeneration was just woefully undertuned, so we increased it pretty significantly.
That's huge.
Hulking Aspect, this one, I'm hoping gets to see more play. This used to be a resource legendary, which looking at it now, was a little weird, because it doesn't actually give you resource, it's just cooldown reduction on the Golem skill. So we're going to move that to a utility. So now you can put this like on your boots and other places that you didn't have to, and it doesn't have to take that prime ring slot to use this legendary.
Nice.
And we're also updating the effect a little bit to be stronger. And then for uniques, kind of similar to what I said before, the Greaves of the Empty Tomb, we're changing the bonus intelligence affix to be replaced with bonus move speed, which I know is particularly attractive for Necromancer players.
Yeah, bro, we're so slow.
Mobility for Necromancers.
Well, yeah, well, Necromancers, they may want mobility a little bit. I heard
Usually the slower individuals in the group. So
yeah, helping them out a little bit. Here, this is a monster change, but it impacts minions really. So Necromancer.
Okay.
But these attacks now from the Balrog and some elite affixes are going to be dealing reduced damage to Necromancer minions and Druid companions. So your pets will just die less often to these things. And then now we got some of our generic updates. We only have a couple of them.
Whoa. Don't be changing the hard zombie, champ. What is this? Change to upon taking elemental damage. Oh, okay, that's good. Wait, which one was this one? Was this one of the ones that you get your resistance buffed or something? Even though resistances don't fucking work? Yeah, I think this is what once people were complaining. I don't know.
The first one is to a malignant heart. This is the caged heart of spellbreaking. And this one used to say that when you took elemental damage, you gained damage resistance to that element, right? It was thematic to reducing only that element, but we found that was really, really narrow. Again,
that was really, really stupid. Because resistances don't even work, bro. How are you gonna add a season 1 mechanic based around stats you know don't work? This mechanic will not stay by the time you they want to fix it by season 2. So why would they add a mechanic that's going to be gone in season 1 based on the fucking shit that doesn't work? Oh my god, that's why nobody was using this fucking heart, because it was fucking pointless.
Trying to open things up so it's not so narrowly useful that you're not going to ever take it. So now it's just going to give you just generic damage reduction when you take elemental damage.
Nice. That's good.
And then our last one here for item updates is Temerity. So we got a lot of feedback on this one. It's funny because when we launched the game, we thought that this item was crazy and going to be really, really good. But then we realized due to the stats on it that it just wasn't hitting the attractiveness that we wanted. So even though this terrifies me, we're going to bump it up and see how it goes. But we're going to replace the all stats affix with bonus max life. The barrier is now also going to be scaling with your maximum life, and it'll probably be working with other barrier legendaries where you need a barrier to do certain procs and things. This will now proc with that as well. So we think this is going to be a pretty big buff to this item.
We have that
in your max life.
in Eternal Realm. I don't know what it is. I forget what it is.
Yeah, so we have a ton of updates coming to the class.
Like Temerity, isn't that for druids?
It's quite an almost like an encyclopedia of stuff that, especially on the barb and
let's see what chat says
classes. But I will say that it's nice that we got some stuff in for the rogue, necromancer, and druid players as well.
Massive Pog W based.
Kind of buffed up some of the more under
PoE stream tomorrow. Don't worry.
One more caveat to all of that. I should have said this at the beginning. It's not final yet.
Not final
This
yet.
is planned.
That's why you probably saw the little
the
watermark
odds are very high we do 90% of it or most of it, maybe even all. But as we get into the weeds of things and we're updating things, some things may change. So
they could still nerf barb.
It's very likely it'll be at least most
still
of it, if not all
nerf
of it,
barb.
but it's not completely in the game yet. So
there might be some number tweaks, basically.
Yeah, we always add a small caveat just because things are still going through testing right now on our side.
Correct.
And we want
to
make sure
testing, all that stuff.
Yeah,
so.
we want to make sure we're not completely.
I'm very careful. I always caveat, not final until you see it in the game.
Adam's being very cautious about it.
I am very cautious.
It's not going to be. You're not going to experience something that's totally different from what you just
That's
saw.
right. That's also why we're not releasing patch notes today, and we're going to actually discuss when patch notes will be released later on in the stream. So we'll reveal that.
And and one thing I do want to note is like there, because I'm seeing this like a little bit in chat, and people are going like, "Hey, you guys are adjusting some tweaks with like, for instance, like druid summons and their minions." Same thing with like there's a lot of questions about like, "Hey, what's the overall plan on like minion builds and so forth in the future? Is that something you guys are still going to want to work on, look at in the future?"
I can talk about this for a very long time. Yes. Druid and Necromancer are a little bit different, so I guess I'll talk Necromancer first. So Necromancer minions is absolutely a core fantasy of Necromancer players, that minions are cool and awesome, and that you can raise the dead and have the dead fight for you. That is core. Minions, it turns out, in all games, not just ours, are
I just like the armor and two swords, no more sword
to make work.
Yes.
A lot of moving parts that are different than every other class and build archetype in many games. They have AI. They have a passive and active component to them typically. There's a lot going on. So in this patch, we're not touching the Necromancer stuff a lot. It is on the team's radar of looking at the ways that they scale, looking at the ways that things proc with them, looking at just the combination of passive versus active activity that we want the player to do there. So there's definitely a lot going on there. We are thinking about it. There will be stuff coming, but no promises on when, but we are actively talking about it. Druid is a little bit different because from the ground up, the class fantasy is not only minions, right? It's like a specific build and way to play. One of the things that we were concerned about when launching the game is we didn't want the Druid to like have just as many or more companions than the Necromancer, and they're stronger. It's like, where's the fantasy of the Necromancer if the Druid does it better, right? So that was something that we contended with a lot. I'm sure that we're going to flex on that over time. We did add support. We still love companions on Druid, and we will absolutely be making it more of a thing, hence why we're buffing them a lot in this patch. But we are careful about the design space and the fantasy of the different classes, right? We don't want all the classes to be exactly the same because then you don't feel different when you're playing. You don't have new interesting mechanics that are between them. We talk about that a lot on the team. It's very easy to be like, hey, just this class doesn't have this and it's fun, give it to all the others, right? I think Necromancer and move speed is part of that, where we overcorrected a little bit, where like we didn't want them to have a teleport or dash, right, like a rogue. If Necromancers are dashing around everywhere, that's a weird fantasy, right? But not giving them enough movement speed options at all, I think, is something that we're coming back on.
Yeah.
So, but it's a push and pull, right? It's on a spectrum of how far do we go to go into another class's fantasy or an archetype that doesn't make sense fantasy-wise versus keeping true to the core and finding clever ways to fix it, or we can't fix it and we do need to bend a little bit. And it's always a conversation.
It's also interesting to see that the feedback, particularly on Druid companions, like we knew that they were really cool, but like the number of Druid players who are looking for more ways to kind of make more companion-focused builds is maybe a little bit higher than we expected.
Yes.
So this is one of those situations where, like, kind of in response to the fact that players are really hoping, like, Druid players are looking to go after this fantasy.
They put it in and they were like, nobody's gonna use this shit.
All these
and everyone's like, hey, bro, what's up with my pets? And I go, fuck.
I think it's kind of like moving our hand a little bit. It's like, oh yeah, actually, there is something really cool here. There is fantasy here for us to really latch onto and more that we can do. But to Adam's point, it's still very important we make sure that the Necromancer feels distinct and the Druid feels distinct after these changes go in.
That's awesome.
It's the eternal struggle for us on class design.
Sure. Yeah. We also have a lot of
Terraria is a pod game.
Quality of life items that we wanted to talk about that we actually kind of hit on last week
sure.
when we were talking on the Campfire chat that would be coming in 1.1.1. And I know we wanted to talk a little bit more about those here. I know we have some changes coming for like monster density, for instance.
Yeah, I want to talk about monster density. So we've
said
a few times now that we're going to increase monster density in Nightmare Dungeons and Helltides.
Oh boy!
The changes are in 1.1.1, like we said last week. And I think we have an image of an example of a Nightmare Dungeon so this is how it is today.
Yeah.
If you go into Nostravus Deepwood, of course,
it's going to be pure red.
Not be exactly like this, but this is an example.
Like in pure red, all of it.
In 1.1.1, it's going to change, so you can see a lot more monsters here.
There it is.
And this is really going back to, we talked about our mission statement for the live game.
Did they have more elites?
After you've achieved your build, begin, and then not be exact dungeon. So this is how it is today.
Oh no, they just added more little red mods.
Wood, of course,
there it is.
And this would not be really back to like this. We talked as an example our mission statement for the live game of
more like looks more distributed. Yeah.
To go in and mow down large numbers of enemies, deal with large numbers of enemies. That's sort of a core part of an ARPG that we want to make sure that we're delivering, especially in the end game content. So that's how to look for Nightmare Dungeons. On Helltide, we've been doing the same thing, increasing density. As I said
Helltide's
last
really
week,
needed.
there are
Helltide's
some areas
really
of Helltide that are highly dense.
Like,
and
I don't
we
even
make
go
sure
into
that all
Helltide,
of
just I
our
need materials,
players,
that's it.
across all of the different platforms that we support can enjoy this increased density. So it's not just the people with the absolute top-end equipment. So we've also been making sure that as we bump up these densities,
They don't have more memory leak issues.
that we're doing it in a way that performance stays reasonable. So you can actually, like, if we bump up density and then the game turns into a slideshow, we didn't actually make the game more fun.
Yes.
Even though there are a lot of monsters, so it needs to stay performant at the same time. So we've been working on that at the same time, so that we can really hit that target. And this is something too that, you know, when 1-1 comes, 1-1.
1-1-1.
We gotta have like
Triple one.
we gotta have a different name for these patches. For these patches, it's fine. It's fine. When that comes out, we're going to be looking at the density there and seeing how close it comes to this mission statement, this goal, right? And if it's not hitting this goal, then we're going to keep working toward that goal. So we really want to make sure that it's capturing that fantasy of mowing down hordes of enemies.
Yeah, it's a great goal for us to line ourselves around too, right? So once we're able to capture more data from players on live, we can see how players.
What are you doing down there, Boogie?
We're able to interact with some of these spaces.
That's
It's going
my
to continue
feet.
to inform us and let us do more and more double down some of these decisions as we go.
And then I know we have some changes coming in regards to bosses and so forth as well.
That's right. So we didn't talk about this last week, but we have gotten a lot of feedback before about the about players, particularly like in World Tiers 3 and 4, fighting like dungeon bosses and world bosses, and being able to go in there with their enhanced power. Now they've got like some techniques online. Their build has really come online, and they've got like a lot of like damage to vulnerable targets. You know, like they're mowing through some of these bosses faster than we expect, right? So, or rather, fast enough that's not really challenging and not really engaging. So we are boosting the health of bosses in World Tiers 3 and 4. You know, at brackets as you're kind of going up the experience. But you know, in exchange for this, in exchange for making some of these pieces just a little bit harder as players are going through them, we are also going to be making a change to the rewards that you get from going through these.
Yeah.
So now, like after 1.1.1 goes live, dungeon bosses starting at level 35 even. So this is before you can get into tiers 3 and 4. And then it's the so once you've done that, or once you've killed those, you're going to have a guaranteed legendary item drop in that space. And that's going to carry up as well into World Tiers 3 and 4. When you complete a Legion event, that's going to also give you a guaranteed legendary drop starting at level 35. You know, there's a chance before 35, but it's guaranteed at level 35. You're going to have one pop in. And then another Butcher has a 100% chance to drop a legendary as well, because he's a boss, of course. And then another really big one is we got, and this is funny, I did it. Please don't follow me on Twitter unless you really want to see a lot of nerdy stuff. But I did a Twitter poll a while ago where I basically.
Yeah, he said don't follow me on Twitter because you'll see that I'll tell you how the game was programmed and people will blame me. Yeah, he's the one who made the Twitter post about the items and how they're really stored and everybody popped off. Oh
so,
man.
You know, what do you think is the chance at which a treasure goblin will drop a legendary item? And I said it was like, you know, 10%, 25%, 40%, 50%, 4 options. The majority of players, or voters, I should say, right, all selected 10% was the chance, and everybody had their own, you know, their feelings on it as they were kind of going through it. But the reality is at level, and I said level 50 treasure goblin as part of this. But the reality is they have a 50% chance to drop legendary items today. And that's like going back to like
bullshit.
35.
I've gotten
drop legendary items.
That's bullshit. That's bullshit. We can literally go over the VODs yesterday. I killed 4 goblins with the last yesterday or 2 days. 2 of them dropped blue gear and some of them dropped rare gear. I think one dropped legendary, maybe 2 dropped legendaries. But some of them dropped crap, and I killed them with my Necro, which is level 60 something. So that's bullshit.
But
So what you're saying is sometimes I kill a treasure goblin and it doesn't drop a legendary item.
That's
Yeah,
correct.
that's what I heard.
That's exactly right. So basically, if you flip a quarter every 25 minutes, that's basically your chance to get a legendary item when you're fighting treasure goblins in the overworld. And it's very easy to have like tails, 5 times in a row, and then
That's what happens to me every time.
And as humans, we are 7 times more likely to remember a negative thing than a positive thing. So this is nothing wrong with rather there's nothing wrong with the player's perception of treasure goblins not feeling rewarding. You don't see them that frequently relative to other content types, and when you don't get a legendary item from something called a treasure goblin, that can feel bad.
But I get excited every time I see one. I say it's a goblino, and I chase it down, and it's recorded for most of the time. So like, I mean, it's very impacting for me. So that's why I know that they didn't drop shit gear, because I get upset because I'm trying to farm bardings. I'm trying to drop that one cool ass barding that the goblins drop, but fucking a pain in the ass to find them. And if they drop shit gear, they drop shit gear.
So what we decided to do is we've gone back and said, starting right at level 15 for treasure goblins, 15, they have a guaranteed legendary item drop chance when you kill one from that point forward. So now when you see treasure goblins in the map, struggling around,
that's when this patch goes live.
Screen, you know you need to go.
I'm gonna be level 100 by then. It's not even gonna matter.
That happens very, very early. So we think that's gonna be like a really fun update to kind of help.
It will.
Things across.
Season 3, when I come back, it's gonna be great.
In this case, 100%, absolutely. We want you to feel like you're getting that power.
No more coin flip. No more coin flip.
Yeah, actually, probably more than 50% more fun.
I will note.
You can't just remember, Gaignun. You have bad memory.
Gabi, the goblin.
The treasure goblin
into the frame.
Should I try?
We have a plush treasure goblin just off screen.
We have a very large plush.
Here's this giant treasure goblin that absolutely doesn't fit on camera
Look
at all.
how happy he is.
And now he's off camera again.
Now.
Staring at Joe as he's literally talking about.
We have a lot of other stuff to discuss.
Staring at Joe as he's literally talking about killing him. So yeah.
They're happy to be of help.
It is a plush. It is a plush creature. So yeah.
I know, and so we talked more about, or you actually, when we were on the stream last week. Sorry, about 2 weeks in a row, you guys. We talked about respecs and so forth. So I know that is also coming in.
Yeah,
in 1.1.1.
we just want to confirm that the stuff we said last week, we're going to reduce respec cost by 40%. Players are going to get an extra stash tab, and Elixir stat count is going to go up to 99.
Yeah. And
wait, what cost?
Last week, we're going to reduce respec cost by 40%.
Respec, not
Players are
fucking.
going to get an extra.
I need
stat tab,
reroll cost,
and,
bro.
Elixir stat count is going to go up to 99.
Yeah, and the stash tab is just purchasable by gold.
right.
So that's just to make sure people don't think we're just selling it.
Tab 1's 100K, Tab 2's 200K, Tab 3's 300K, Tab 4's be 400K. So you can buy that for your seasonal stash and for your eternal stash.
Yes, exactly. And then one other thing that we did want to talk about, because this was a question that came up last week in regards to like the leaving dungeon options and like teleporting out of dungeons and so forth.
They got memed so hard for this. Why would you add 2-second cooldown for no goddamn reason? Okay, give me the reason. We've waited. And I know you wanted to talk more about that here today.
I don't know. I think I explained it pretty well last time.
So clear.
There's a loop there. I don't know why anyone's confused. This is very clear.
He clearly saw the videos. He clearly saw the videos of him getting roasted, of him just fucking not answering why they would increase the goddamn time.
No, I'm just kidding. We're going to change it back to 3 seconds.
Yes.
Basically, the reason that we increase this is we have, in Diablo 4, we have a mechanic where when you're casting some kind of spell or power and you get hit by some damage, you don't get interrupted immediately. You have to take about 5% of your health and damage before it gets interrupted. And this makes things like town portaling back to town, leave dungeon, etc.
Leave dungeon was extended, but town portal was not.
Feel a lot better.
Saving a prisoner.
Saving a prisoner, absolutely, yeah.
Every time.
So if you're taking like really incidental damage, it's not going to get interrupted. But we were worried about a case where you're in the middle of a high-intensity combat fight or in the middle of a boss fight, and we felt like it was a little bit too easy to get out of that. In terms, and that's actually what it's referring to with the loop, which again, I felt like I nailed it, but I guess and so
He's still not
there are
explaining.
other ways that we
He's
could
still
have
not
solved that, right?
explaining.
We could have said like, oh well, you get pushback on your cast, or like, oh well, it's only increased to 5 seconds if you're in a boss fight or something.
Like, oh well, maybe if you just got recently damaged, you have to do a cooldown before you can cast Leave Dungeon.
That, but ultimately, what players really accurately pointed out is, look, this slows down the core loop of the game in a way that's not fun.
Yeah.
So we're just.
I can literally feel it.
Yeah. So it was at 3 seconds, went to 5 seconds, going back to 3 seconds because obviously good player feedback from everyone. So
I've got one more bonus to talk about too. So we've been getting a lot of feedback, obviously, on the end game experience, tiers 3 and 4, and Nightmare Dungeons are a really big part of that. Last week we talked about how we were going to be ensuring that the Nightmare Dungeon difficulty was scaled more appropriately. Yeah. So now, like the tier 70 difficulty was the old version. Rather, the old version of tier 70 is now the tier 100 changes that we made to more accurately reflect the balance we have in Diablo 4 versus the kind of insane overtuned stuff we had prior for the tier 70 plus content. One other thing that we obviously are thinking about, the scaling difficulty is one part of this, but we also get plenty of feedback on some of the Nightmare Dungeon affixes themselves. And we know that some of these are sort of ones you're going to want to basically throw in the trash right away. So you're going to want to salvage these and get Citadel Dust immediately upon when some of these things kind of pop up. So a couple of the ones that we're actually going to be, for now, we'll be removing a few of these as we think about reworking them.
Let's see, I'm going to predict they remove the freezing aspect. And then I predict they're going to remove one of the exploding on death aspects. Basically, the things that I've gotten killed by yesterday, like 8 times, I'm betting money they're going to remove. But we'll see. We'll see what happens. I know at least they're going to remove one of them.
Remember decide what we want to do with them. But we're going to be taking these out in 1.1.1. They're not going to appear anymore. That is so. The first is Resource Drain. It's not going to be showing up in Citadels anymore.
Oh, Resource Drain.
Cold Enchanted is not going to be showing up in Nightmare.
There it is. Resource Drain and fucking Freezy Boys.
For a bit, and then Backstabber is being removed as well as part of 1.1.1. Now,
yeah,
this
Backstabber
is not
did hurt a
by
little
any
bit.
means an exhaustive list of the things we'd want to adjust on the affix side. There's lots more that we want to do to kind of improve this experience. This is just sort of like while we're in here beginning to look at these things, we know that these are problematic. We have adjustments we want to make anyway. We want to go ahead and pull these out. And just
remember we'd get like 2 or 3 Freezy Boys and we'd know we'd be dead.
Awesome to hear. I know that a lot of players have been giving feedback about specific Nightmare Dungeon affixes and everything. So it's great that we've been able to jump on a few of the ones that we know are problematic with the community and kind of pull them out and reevaluate and see what we can end up doing with those. So we did, obviously we talked about the date for the patch notes beforehand.
I don't know what you mean.
But we do want to specify that we are going to be releasing patch notes, full patch notes next week. It's actually going to be on August 2nd next week on Wednesday. We'll be releasing full patch notes. And then 1.1.1 is going to be coming out on August 12th, which is Tuesday. So players
next
will...
Tuesday?
Did I get those dates right? Yes. I'm doing this by memory. I'm doing it by memory.
I have no idea. So.
I've seen so many calendars in the last day.
Tuesday after.
Oh, sorry. It is. No, I lied.
Think it's
it is August 8th.
Yeah.
See, this is dates. Just
Everything's
flying
a
through
blur
my
right
head.
now.
Bro, it's still like
August 2nd is when the patch notes will be coming out.
weeks for
in
this.
full, and then August 8th is when the patch will actually hit.
Yeah.
Sorry, I apologize. I've had a lot of dates in my head over the past couple of
That's
weeks.
still a long ass time.
Yeah, buff the
Bro,
date,
by then we'll be playing
that's
like
also
PoE
part
or
of the patch
something.
notes. So
Bro, our
players will
skills
be able
aren't even
see
gonna get
everything
buffed.
Next Wednesday, we'll be posting those, so make sure to stay tuned. Of course, on the Diablo social media, etc. We'll end up updating the patch notes there, so players can see
what
it.
does
Just
chat
remember,
have
the
to
patch
say?
is not that day. We're just posting the notes early so that players can actually see them.
Huge
This goes back
L
to
again.
exactly how we were talking about that we want
Huge
to better
W.
communicate these notes here, similar to how we're doing this here on this Campfire chat. And then of course,
They
August
got
8th is
Rogue
when the
yet?
patch will end up going live for all all players so that they can actually experience it and jump through with all the changes that we are kind of detailing out here, and they'll be seeing in the final patch.
Let's see. Where's my Magic Find? Hey, yo, for real, what happened? I've only found like 2 Magic Find maps.
Because we just went through a whole bunch of stuff right here. I know one question that, as we start to populate questions, feel free to ask them in chat on Twitch, by the way, because we have chat enabled there. But I know one question, and something that we talked about last week, as we're waiting for questions to kind of come in, was about XP in later game, or for late game players and stuff like that. Do you have any update and in regards to that specific topic?
Yeah, I can talk about that. So we did talk about this last week, and what we said then was that, you know, we are not looking to make the game feel slower across the board. We're not looking to like slow down the players' like XP gain rate in response to like feedback about some of the other changes that we had made. You know, the goal was really, we want to make sure the players are having a good time progressing through World Tiers 3 and 4, not feeling like they're hitting a point where it's really, really difficult to make progress. So in response to some of these thoughts, we had gone through and we had raised the amount of experience that you gain from like before the 1.1 patch went out. We raised the amount of experience gain you get from Nightmare Dungeon completion, from Helltide cache opening.
Right. Yeah, but then you gutted all the experience buffs.
Those activities to make them feel juicier as part of that. And now we're going through and we're updating density inside the Nightmare Dungeons and in Helltide areas as well. So all of this to say, we are committed to increasing the speed at which the players be progressing through these later world tiers. We're not happy with the speed at which players are getting through some of this content and the kinds of behavior incentivizing as a result of that, right? We want to make sure that players feel that they can play the way that they want and they can progress at a decent pace. But now that we've made a number of these changes, we do want to see what the impact's going to be on the overall XP gain rate across the board for players, and just seeing how different kinds of players are progressing, so that when we go through and we make changes, which we will be making soon, I think probably likely for season 2, when we go through and we make these changes, that's going to be informed by what we see players going through and what their experience is like now. Yeah, exactly. So it's really just a question of like how much are we going to make adjustments, like what's going to feel right, and that's going to be based on like what we see from players.
We have 2 people actually asking pretty similar questions, but one was specifically calling out Adam Jackson and his thoughts on this, but but they both are very similar questions. One is from Febzilla, the other one's from Karnaga.
I'm so sorry. Can I just jump in really quick? Can I ask chat a question? Do you, yes or no, do you want Adam to read the names of people that he's getting the questions from?
I think we should.
Adam.
Yes.
Okay, he's saying he should. Okay.
I think we should, just because I don't want to go into that whole situation. Like that other outlet made up names, and we don't do that. So
he got caught up.
Karnaga and Febzillas, they both ask about. People are all like, no.
I knew it.
Well, honestly, it would make my job so much easier.
I know.
I wish I
Please
could.
finish your question.
Well, we're going to read these at least.
The question is about crowd control. Obviously, it is a huge and popular topic amongst the community. What are our thoughts about crowd control? What are we planning on doing about that here in the future?
I bet we all have thoughts on that, actually.
We do, yeah.
Yes.
Let me just say first that
it was directed towards Adam, but
I
okay.
think that as you get into situations where there are lots of monsters on screen and high-end areas where the amount of damage that is really high, so you're having to react really quickly. Situations where you're being hard CC'd, or like stun or freeze or something like that, can be much more impactful than they are when the intensity and the
you freeze, you die.
Lower. And so we want to make changes to CC to make that experience more fun. We want to do that. It's not.
And now he's pointing. He's like, Adam, take it away, bro.
Those are changes that we're looking at right now.
Yeah. There's larger CC stuff that we're discussing internally that we want to kind of pair with a few of the big changes we have planned in the future.
In fact, we're working on stuff like that for that right now.
Yeah.
There is a question here.
The guy they asked the question they didn't even answer.
My favorite question, because I always get this. It's from Cookie Drops. So are you guys planning on addressing the issues related to like the imperfectly balanced on Necromancer?
Well, yes.
Or on Necromancer.
They already said yes.
In 1-1.
In 1-1-1.
Those are.
In 1-1-1. I will be probably done with my seasonal journey by the end of 1-1-1 and playing something else. That is in 2 weeks, my man. You have rolled out 2 hot fixes. This has been busted since the beginning.
All right, we just didn't list all the bug fixes and stuff
There's
like that.
a whole lot of bug fixes.
Yeah, so you guys will
So
see
we're
those
working on
notes
it.
and everything,
True.
but those are addressed in
Yes.
in this specific update, and it's something that I know a lot of people have been asking, going like, well, I can only add 1 point, yet it says I can add 3, and so forth. So most definitely being addressed in that. We've actually just been getting a general decent amount of questions related to resistances and what the intent is going to be with resistances here in the future. There's a ton of questions, so lots of names. But
Sure, yeah.
I guess like what's the vision on resistances here in the future?
I talked about it a little bit. The vision is kind of, I think, what the standard vision of most games is, which is everything is impactful and meaningful and feels good, and you invest and get rewarded for those things at all times. But reality is a little bit harder than that. But that is kind of the North Star and what we're trying to do. The idea is that when you invest in elemental resistances, you will notice a difference in the damage that you take. We don't want just armor or damage reduction or any like king stat that is just way better than everything else. That's the only thing you care about.
That is though.
It is tough to find a perfect balance there of how impactful some things should be versus others, and then can you negate certain kinds of combat when you max things out or only focus on only one thing. And there's a lot of gray area there that we're talking about, but our goal is that, and when we go and really take a deep dive at it, is one, we don't want you to just stack armor and that's better than everything else. We don't want you to stack just like general damage resistance and that's just better than everything else. We want elemental resistances to be meaningful, but we also don't want to get to a place where you fight a fire boss and you stack all fire resistances and it actually can't hurt you.
Nice.
There's always a push and pull.
Why?
The inverse of that.
Somebody worked for that build. Somebody worked to get to that point to maximize all of their fire resistance to one element. You gotta understand, they beat that fire boss. Now they go fight a poison boss. That fire resistance is useless. So why not? Why not?
Is actually also really dangerous, which is that you're wandering through the game. You don't always know the kinds of creatures or affixes.
True.
You don't know the kinds of affixes you can be dealing with. You've got 0% poison resistance, and you get
And you
basically
die.
1 tick from a level 60 poison creature kills you.
Sure.
Right. It's like
It's a
there's
balancing
a balancing act. The team is as we move forward, everything that Adam just said is 100% accurate. We want to make sure that the choices between like armor for mitigation, for damage resistance based on passives, legendary powers,
Yes.
glyphs, and paragon nodes. Those things are impactful, and that resistance plays a really, really important role. The big difference here is that resistance is a thing that you are going to stack and earn separately, and that they are usually tied to affixes or inherent affixes on rings and jewelry. So it means that some players will be able to go and encounter situations where they are not going to have a predictable amount of resistance when they go into an encounter, which means that we just need to think about what that is going to feel like for that player. And
True.
imagine a world where they are able to still complete the content, but it's much more effective to have the appropriate amount of resistance. We need to make that feel impactful. Yes. So there's going to be situations where we are going to ensure that if you are getting into a predictable fight against a creature that is going to be dealing a certain kind of damage, and you don't have resistance in mind when you go into that fight, you're going to be penalized for that. That's going to be a really, really difficult situation for you. But we are, trying to balance this against the general flow of Diablo 4 as it stands today, as opposed to trying to like remake it into an entirely different experience.
Right. And to sort of get to I think the point of the question, the question there, which I think is, do you guys realize that resistances don't feel like they're hitting that goal right now?
That's right.
What do you mean don't feel? They don't work. What are you talking about?
Yes.
We're going to make changes to
Yes.
All right, sounds good.
They don't work, and they added resistances as a new like stat that shield can reroll. So more work trying to perfectly roll the shield. I don't know who uses a shield, but I want that type of min-max play PoE. Well, no, I'm just saying, like, that's understandable, but I mean, like there's no reason anybody should make a complete fire-resistant build unless you're doing, unless one of those that holy righteous fire build, right? But that makes sense in that game. Here, that doesn't make sense. Like, here, if somebody wanted to build enough poison resistance where the poison boss didn't want to hurt them, what's wrong with that? Like, they did it. It's not like the next boss they're going to be able to cheese and resist unless they fucking get a whole new build. They have 4 different loadouts. Like, this is my shadow loadout. This is my poison loadout. And that still only lasts a season. So, I mean, it's this. Like, they need to reduce the impact some elements do. That's just it. Like, the fucking Death on Explosion, the Electric Archers, and the Freezy Boys. I think that's the main thing, honestly, right now. I don't have a problem with the Chargers after Death Explosion, but just some of those are just
There
rough.
is a lot of questions about mounts and how, like, you know, we've gotten a lot of feedback about mounts. We've seen
A lot of people don't
Carbot
like the
videos.
tracking.
Our friend Carbot Animation made an episode about mounts. Very funny. If you haven't seen it, highly recommend checking it out. But are there any discussions? Are you guys aware? Like, what are you guys planning on doing in relation to mounts?
Yeah, there are a few changes here. So we want to make mounts feel better, sort of broadly speaking, and a couple of those things are making sure that the boost feels really good, especially with controller, where it's underperforming, and the boost actually, the boost mechanic on the mounts, it actually stacks. There's a bug right now with that on controller where it's not stacking properly. We're going to fix that, there's a few other. There's a key part of this is that the mount gets stuck on things, and that's part. That's
Barricade.
one of the things that barricade, for example. You know, in theory, the idea that you're riding through an area and some bandits or some skeletons have set up a barricade for you, and you have to sort of like dismount and fight all those skeletons. Like, that sounds like a fun idea. It doesn't exactly play out that way. You're just sort of annoyed, and you're like, well, can I like kind of ride around the top of the barricade? And then it's a fight about whether the collision actually touches. Anyway, we're going to fix that. So there are some good changes to mounts coming.
Oh, so they're fixing mount collision. Good, good.
And I know that I've been seeing this a lot as well in chat, and this is something I can answer, is I'm seeing a lot of people talk about VRAM, like on PC and so forth, and like how that obviously grows over time with certain players, not all players, but certain players with certain spec machines, and they eventually either have to force close or the game actually just ends up closing itself, and then they have to come back into the game. I know with patch 1.10, there was a update related to a memory leak that we ended up addressing, but then in 1.11, and I know that QA and so forth, our QA team has been working really closely with our graphics engineering team and testing out a fix that's going to be coming in there that should be helping out a lot of those players and making sure that VRAM stays stable throughout their gameplay and so forth. So that will also be in 1.11. It's a popular question.
Okay.
I know a lot of people have been hitting me up on that one specifically.
I'm sure.
There was a question earlier about overpower and the intent behind it, what like future plans and so forth.
Sure.
Kind of similar to the resistance questions. I think there's a lot of questions related to a lot of these things that we do plan on actually addressing.
Totally. They're fundamentally like how the game works, so I understand. So the intent of overpower way back in the day was we really wanted to create a stat that was different than crit and felt meaningfully different that players could chase, that had kind of a unique mechanic attached to it. Where overpower sits now is that I really like the idea of it. I think is really cool, which is it rewards you for building a really tanky character, and you get a big hit of damage. That's really, really awesome. It also scales off of your max health and then the current health percent that you have at the time, and then also scales with Fortify. So normally these stats aren't things that you want to scale to kill things, right? So we're trying to add another avenue of a vector to do that. And then the other thing that's unique about overpower and how we didn't want to just turn into critical strike chance and damage like a lot of mechanics can be, is that you have a baseline low percent to do it, right? It's 3% across everything, and you can never increase that baseline percent ever, and that is a design choice and a goal. And then the idea is that you can, however, get guaranteed overpowers by doing certain mechanics. So the Druid has some, the Necromancer has some, where it's like, hey, you do this thing, and the next one is guaranteed. So you can still play around it, but unlike crit, where you're chasing the random chance to get higher and higher and higher to get those procs, overpower just naturally happens kind of rarely, and then the builds that can use it get it guaranteed. And then that you have different vectors and avenues to scale it. The problem right now with overpower really is not necessarily an overpower problem, but it's really the crit vulnerable problem of these other things that scale multiplicatively just overshadow overpower in the same way that even dot damage is very much a lot of times overshadowed too. And so when we're looking at our revamp, the dream and the goal and the utopia we're moving towards is all of these vectors.
Just make it scale.
Overpower, but there's some
just
other
make it
ones
scale.
I know I'm thinking of that.
Like crit.
Like those.
You want it to be like
legendary
crit, make it like
spawns,
crit.
That's another example.
Oh, sure,
Adding
yeah.
Take it
Like,
out of
you
that
want-
bucket and
when
put it
you
into
give
the
your
other one.
fantasy as a player, whether it's baseline or via legendaries and uniques, that you're able to build that into the late game and it's delivered on, and you can actually scale and be just as good as anybody else. That's the goal. That will always be the goal that we move towards. We're not there yet, obviously, but that's kind of the intent. Is overpower is another stat that you can actually chase meaningfully via lots of other stats too that it combines with to make a build, and that's kind of.
I don't know.
Awesome. And then this is a question that I know everyone talks about. I don't know if this group up here can fully answer it, but it's something that we can follow up on, which is the zooming in and zooming out on your character.
Oh,
getting
boy.
A wider look of gameplay and so forth. I know there's like performance implications to that because it increases the draw distance and so forth, and we have a ton of different platforms, so it has to be evaluated in any type of way if we were to make that type of change. Because even when it does zoom out on bosses and so forth, there's like some resolution or scaling and so forth that kind of occurs there. Please don't kill me, engineers, if I'm saying that wrong. But maybe that's another topic we can bring up during like another campfire chat with engineers, possibly to maybe clarify a little bit on that.
Why we can't zoom
or
out.
We can just follow up separately after the campfire chat. But I know that's a question that a lot of people have been asking. And then there's questions regarding are there any additional options for customization down the road that you guys are looking at, like pets or wings, etc. I know it's
Bro, they want
we're
pets?
looking at and evaluating just
Oh,
depending
no
on
way.
player feedback. Right now, we're very focused on obviously creating additional more content for players to play through at the moment, more so than some of the cosmetic pieces and so forth. But it is something I know that players have been asking for.
Yeah, we want to add more stuff like that. That stuff is really fun to add. But we felt that right now what was really important is helping sorcerers, helping barbarians, and some of these other buffs to classes.
Reverting nerves.
And I think there's, we'll do this one last question here before we end the stream. But one thing that people have been asking about is like all the changes that they're seeing today. Is this like encapsulating everything that we're doing? We had a question in here regarding like, for instance, someone enjoyed playing a frozen orb sorcerer in like Diablo 2, for instance, and wanting to have that same type of fantasy in Diablo 4. Do you guys plan on doing additional adjustments in the future regarding other builds or other, like creating variability across that?
Sure, no, absolutely. This patch, I talked a little bit about like we have our short-term goals and long-term things we're thinking about. Forevermore long-term, really, infinitely long-term, is the idea that, every fantasy that we sell you, and I could talk a lot about, I talk to the team about this all the time. Like,
And by sell, we
but yeah, all right, yeah, sell is probably the bad word. But I think that way, like
We're
when
advertising it. Like if you see it on legendary
Every
aspects,
fantasy-
That's really what I
if you
mean
see it on
is-
passives, you see it on
Yes.
skill tags. Like we're saying, like, hey, look, this is a cool thing for you
when
to go
we
after.
show you something that is cool and awesome, we deliver on it, right? Like when you log into Necromancer, you see right away, just when you see your basic skills, like, hey, there's a bone thing, a shadow thing, and a blood thing, right? And then there's army stuff. All of those things should be delivered on and be awesome. And then as you go through the game, when you get legendaries and uniques, you should unlock, one, double down and make those things really cool, and two, unlock more things that are awesome.
Okay.
And what our goal always is that all of these things are awesome and cool. When we find something that isn't hitting the mark, we either buff it or redesign it in such a way that it's hitting the mark and it's attractive and ideally really fun and exciting for players to chase. Like that's always what we're going to be trying to do. So yeah, this isn't exhaustive forever. We are always going to be adapting and updating things. And if something just really isn't working, even if it's like something that I made, I have no hubris about like, hey, that thing, it was awful. Make it something good, right? Like at the end of the day, the players are the ultimate judge, jury, and executioner for us of like, did it work? Is it good? Is it fun? Yes or no? If not, then we have to be malleable enough to change that.
Right, and we could be looking at data too. We could be seeing like how many players are picking what kinds of passes, what
Absolutely,
kind of
we
aspects
do
are they
all the time,
wearing, what kind of uniques are they using, like, and we can see, so like we know when like if no one's equipping a particular aspect, like we can see that, but like okay, well that's clearly something we're going to want to rework or update or buff or do something with, right? Like this, to Adam's point, it is a never-ending process. We keep talking about how we're all here trying to make Diablo 4 the very best game that it can be. And the reality is this is through iterations of the conversation with the community and also looking at this kind of data.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, we have a ton of changes here coming up for 1.1.1 that you guys got to see here, especially for class changes. Thanks, Adam, for kind of walking us through everything.
Yeah.
And, We do have final patch notes coming next Wednesday. That is August 2nd. So just a reminder on that. Revealed full, where people can read through them and provide full feedback and so forth. And then of course, that's my tick. Someone called out my tick earlier. And so forth. Stop that, Adam. That's my tick. I will stop that one day. I probably won't. But we actually do have our patch for 1.1.1. The date will be on August 8th as well. So players can expect patch notes
August 8th,
Wednesday,
guys.
and then of course 1.1.1 hitting on August 8th, which is Tuesday. So looking forward to seeing everyone's feedback, everyone jumping in, and checking out, of course, the new changes coming to pretty much every class now, and in regards to balance changes and so forth.
See what chat has to say.
Oh, I did it again.
And so forth.
Now you're in your own head.
Now,
Be like
now,
clap every time.
now I'm just stuck in this
WWL
room saying it
clap.
over and over. But anyway,
And get us
PoE2,
feedback on how
let's
like,
go.
how you like this format for talking about patch notes.
exactly, yeah. We want to see if this works out really well with the community.
Massive
so,
pog, big
please provide
W.
feedback. Us going through the notes and of course releasing the notes afterwards. It's a huge help for us and how to communicate with you guys.
I think people liked it.
So thank you guys again. We hope you enjoyed this Campfire Chat ++, New Game ++.
Sure.
And we will see you on our next stream, which we haven't announced on. We're thinking about doing some Campfire Chats with like maybe other teams here, whether it's our art, animation teams, audio teams, and so forth, just so you guys can see kind of a deeper look into some of the development within our seasons and Diablo 4 from other people. So we do plan on expanding these a little bit more, and of course, having Campfire Chats and dev update streams to talk more about the game, gameplay, and design,
That's cool.
and so forth.
You did it again.
But anyways, I hope you guys have a great weekend. Thank you again from the Diablo 4 team here at Blizzard, and yeah, have a great Friday.
Thanks, everybody.
Toodles. All right. Overall, thoughts, ideas, comments, concerns. It's a good direction. It's a good direction. They literally buffed pretty much all the stuff that they're not seeing being used. They changed a couple of things to try to make them used. I think uniques are still gonna be butt for a while. Not too bad, but too late. That is my similar opinion. I think it's not a bad patch. It's a good direction. They're going great. It's gonna go great. By season 3, I think it's gonna be a really good game. Season 4, season 5. It's just, I think it's gonna be too late. By the time they fix the class I'm already playing, I'll be done with season 1, and the goal is to be the tier 4 boss, farm some stuff, beat Pinnacle Lilith, and we're done. That's it. We beat the game until next season for the next 2-3 months. There's no reason to log in. Unless we get a hankering to make another class for some reason. So, that's what it is. I think it's good. Good direction, good overall. I think maybe a little too late, as I can spell said. We'll see what it's like. Now, holy shit, we only have 15 minutes